Welcome back to Foundation. We are in Twisted River. We have just finished our first 4 months of the game, and we are now in a position to start looking at the next tier of unlockables. So I've got now enough population, commerce, and territory to push me over the 20 mark in prosperity, which means that I can unlock some things here. And what I'm going to unlock first is the small storage because I need to start trading for pottery. And I don't want to make a huge warehouse. The vanilla warehouses are pretty big. I'm going to grab the small storage unlockable from the storage mod. And we're just going to pop a little storage shed here. So we'll pick a small warehouse. We have two different models. I like this one here with the little, it's just a little shed. And we can pop a door on it like so. We've got our first benches. One of my favorite features of 1.9 is that the villagers, during their free time, instead of just hanging out in their house the whole time, they will come and sit on these benches. Starting to get a bit rubbish lying around the town, so once we have enough gold, we will probably invest in a rubbish collector. Not only will that clean up the town, but it'll also give us the opportunity to sell the iron that we can recover from the rubbish that we collect and recycle. So we finished the quest to improve the market, so we now have 6 influence or 6 rating because of our 6 splendor in labor, which of course is causing the rating to go down in kingdom and clergy. So we just need to keep an eye on that and try not to push this much higher because we do want to achieve the kingdom splendor of 5 so that we can get the first tier of unlockables in the kingdom estate as well. Starting to see more trees, which is nice. Getting a steady flow of immigrants. And we now have our storage shed built. We're going to store pottery. And in anticipation of using the rubbish mod, we're going to store iron as well. Cloth would be another one to store early on because we're going to need more cloth to expand our market. And I'm not going to be able to produce that myself, so I'm going to go ahead and trade for cloth. Maybe we'll start storing compost so that we can begin accumulating that for our first vegetable farms. Alright, so I've completed a quest to help the fishermen, so now they're saying they can give me some advice on trading stones for fish, so basically they're going to give me some fish. I can spend influence to get them, or I can give them some stone. I think actually I've loads of influence. I have too much influence in labor, so I'll go ahead and pay some influence to get the fish, which will be nice as a backup food source. Speaking of food, I'm going to go ahead and start expanding my market. So I've got the market, which includes 2 sub-buildings at the moment, so I'm going to double-click on the market tables and add another table. And again here, I'm going to be careful not to increase the splendor labor, because if I do that, I will end up with a lower rating in kingdom, and I don't want that to happen. So whatever I'm going to build here, I'm going to try to avoid anything that has splendor. So the food stall itself doesn't have any splendor. If I were to add one of the colored tents, it would increase the splendor, which I don't want to do. So I'm just going to add this food stall. And that food stall is going to be so that I can sell my eggs, which I'm producing lots of now. Now my gold is starting to creep up, and if I look at my log, I sold my first pottery, 12 pottery for 48 gold. So in addition to now my tax income, I have a trade income. And what my goal will be for the first few months of the game is to keep a steady supply of at least 10 pottery in this shed, so that every time the trader comes, which is I think every week, I'll have 10 pottery that I can sell to him. And that'll keep a steady stream of about 50 gold coming in every week from pottery, which will be much needed because we're going to need a lot of golds to continue construction of new resources and industries. But in terms of gold, if I pause the game quickly, I have the opportunity now to buy an unlockable in the common path. And because I'm so focused in this game on the seasons and making sure I have enough food for winter, I'm going to unlock fishing. So that'll cost me 50 gold, and I'll unlock rubbish for 25. So let's get a rubbish collector started. So most of the rubbish in a village is going to be around the village center, the markets, anywhere where people tend to be more often. So the center of the town is, going to be the dirtiest. So in order to start cleaning that up, I'll get my rubbish collector, and I'll probably just situate this right off the main area here. And they'll automatically start collecting rubbish near their collection point. The other thing that I unlocked was the fishing. So I mentioned earlier in the game that it looks like all the fish on this map are actually in this lake, and there's at least 4, maybe 5 spots where there's fish, which is great. Which means they won't run out very quickly. Let's get started on that. One thing I don't like hugely in the map generator is these really shallow lakesides. It looks more like a beach to me, but be that as it may, I just need to make sure that there's room for the fisherman to get into the fishing hut from the land, but also to have his boat in the actual water and not on the land. So I think that's appropriate. Now, one thing you'll notice is that with the Balancing for Resources mod, Balancing for Realism mod, and with the Basic Materials mod, fishing huts cost a lot more in terms of tools, so I have to be really careful not to spam these. It kind of drives me crazy when I see so many people posting pictures of their game and they have, 50 identical fishing huts all along the shore, which just seems really unrealistic to me. So not only are we limited by the number of fish, but also I don't want to spend all of my tools on fishing huts, so I'm just going to start with one fishing hut here. We need to start thinking about security. We're up at 30 people. Theft is going to become an issue when we get to 50 people. And now that I have this church in the middle of town, which will more effectively cover my entire radius, I'm going to put the security building in the same area as the church. So what I'll do is I'll start with a Lord Manor. So we'll call this the Church Manor. And we're going to do a guard function. So immediately I see my current security status, and obviously green is good and red is bad. So red means that people will steal from that location, as well as people who are employed there could turn into outlaws. And then orange is where people will steal, but the workers won't become outlaws. So I need to improve my security situation before I get to 50 villagers so that all of these buildings are showing as green. Some of them are green now because there's exceptions in the security mod for kind of simple workplaces like the stonecutter and the woodcutter. They don't have a security rating, so they just get an automatic green rating. So I need to produce enough security in this location so that it will cover that entire village. And the way to do that, there are 2 ways to do it. One is I can send patrols out to the edges of the village that are further away, and that will help secure those sections. Or I can increase the security rating of my security building by adding more guards, more parts to the building, which will also increase the radius of the security around that building. So I think I have the option of using the Lord Manor pieces. I also have a couple of pieces from the security mod itself. So I have a wooden tower and I have a constable's keep. When I am going to be using the wooden keep from the Kingdom Estate, I'll have more stone options, as well as if I use the monastery to do security. But at the moment, I just have these options. So I think I'll just stick with using the wooden tower from Vanilla. I'll try to make it look like it's part of the church, so that it appears to be sort of like a fortified church, if you will. I think they'll use the church door, but I'm going to put a door on it just in case. Try to get that door so that it sticks out of the church a little bit here. So we'll just move it over like this. It doesn't actually have to be attached to the tower as long as it's overlapping, the blue zones are overlapping. Okay, so that should work. So the guards will come in there, and we also need some patrol arrows. So I'm going to have them patrol the front of the church, so they're going to stand at attention here. Stand at attention here. So patrol arrows also increase the radius and strength of your security perimeter. And then I'm going to have some of them go to the market as well, because as we get outlaws, we're going to want to make sure we have guards patrolling the market to catch any outlaws that do come back to town. One of the problems with wood right now is that I'm using it for a number of things. I'm using it as fuel for the potter's kiln. I'm using it, I am actually building the fisher's hut. And I'm also using it as fuel for selling fuel from the market. So I'm probably a little understaffed in terms of fuel and wood. But we'll just let this run a little bit and hopefully we'll start to catch up as these buildings get constructed. Food situation's very good. We have still our kind of original 200 berries. We have the extra fish that we got from the quest. And now we already have more than 100 eggs. It's important that we keep through the summer as the weather improves, keep those workplaces free. So if they start to block up at 50 as a maximum output, we need to add more storage areas in our granary. I'm actually going to go ahead and double the egg storage in here to make sure that that workplace does not fill up. That'll ensure that we get the maximum production from our workplaces. As I build more buildings, my upkeep is going to increase. So last month I already had an upkeep of 110, but luckily my tax office is now outstripping that, which is really good news because I need any excess profits from tax and trade to go towards construction. I believe my rubbish table is finished. It is. So this is my rubbish collector. And because I can start to sell the iron from that, I'm going to go ahead and go into the trade screen and say sell any iron that I receive. Perfect. The fisher's hut is built, so we're ready to start fishing. And we're going to assign Mindfritus the Sullen. So he's a sullen fella, so he likes to spend a lot of time alone on the lake. So have at it, Mindfritus. So we've nowhere to store the fish, and our granary is more or less full. So I'm going to go ahead and add another storage location here. Using the small granary from the storage mod, we have the choice of a root cellar, which doesn't really fit with being next to the water, or a corn crib, which is kind of high up off the ground, which makes a lot more sense. We're talking about a waterlogged location, just making sure that there's room around that for people to walk. Build that. Another draw on our very limited wood and plank resources. I'm going to pause sawmill yet again because I can see that they're starting to accumulate planks, but our wood is completely out. We need to make sure we can get ahead of this. So we don't have the next tier of labor yet, so let's take a look again at our common path. We have clothing, which would require a lot of preparation because we need to get animals, etc., etc. Animals we have to trade for, which means we have to have some gold to get those animals to start our own sheep farms. I don't think we're ready to hit this yet, although clothing is very lucrative because if you look at the trade routes, the first trade route that we have will buy gold, will buy clothing, and it buys it for 12 gold, which is a lot. So it is very lucrative to have clothes, but it's a tough industry because it also requires commoners for the tailor and the weaver, and we're not ready to have commoners yet. So let's go ahead and unlock that. Now this is going to use cloth, and we want to be careful of not over using cloth. So what I'm going to do is go up to my trade screen and trade for cloth. So I'll increase this to 10. Make sure we always have at least 10 cloth on hand at any time. Okay, my granary is finished already. I mentioned I would be storing fish. Okay, we need to start thinking about increasing our poultry production. So I'm going to click on my poultry farm. I've got, if I double click again, I get the chicken house with the eggs, and I'm going to add another chicken house to this same monument. So each house should probably have 3 to 4 flocks. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 in the original. So I'll add 1, 2, 3, 4 here. I have 40 eggs already. I have loads of eggs. So I can hatch those chickens right away, and it's going to cost me 40 gold, which is a lot. But I'm willing to do that because I want to start to maximize my summer production. We're at a nice temperature of 20 degrees Celsius. So we need to make sure we're producing as much food as possible. So at the moment, I'd say the two limiters, the main limiter is wood, because our pottery is probably a little slow because of the lack of wood, and any construction is going to be slow as well. One thing that we can do to increase our wood supply is to increase the reforestation area. Like so. We've already got an extraction zone in all those places, which is fine. But we'll start to use these houses that are spawning. So as they upgrade, the Cottage Industries mod allows me to use these upgraded surf houses as a workplace. So I've already done that once. I have a woodcutter working in this house. So I'm going to have the people living in this house start to plant trees. And use one of those builders that we assigned earlier. Waitohi Broadfoot. And they'll start to plant trees here, which will increase the total amount of harvestable wood. And then once there's more trees to harvest, we will use another house to start to collect wood. We also need to expand our church, because we're going to quickly have more than 45 villagers. So a quick way to do that would be to add another nave, without kind of increasing the overall footprint too much. Build that. Use up some of our stone. We're going to be running out of planks again, but wood is still an issue. Luckily, our forester over here is starting to really ramp up the planting of trees, which is good. I'm going to pause construction of the church because I want to make sure that we are focused on these houses. Getting to be a pretty busy place, 43 people already. Okay, winter is coming, so it's giving me a warning that it's getting cold, and actually I can see it's getting cold because it's already 10 degrees, which is quite cool. So we're heading into the coldest time of year. We need to store and preserve as much food as possible. I'm feeling fairly good, although my berry supply is quite low, suddenly. I've had some visitors, which is not ideal, but not much I can do about them. Okay, I think I'm ready to now convert one of these houses, or to add a function to the house to gather wood. As you can see, I'm starting to have some more mature trees here. Actually, I'm going to take that stone cutter that I just put over here. I'm going to put them against wood cutting here. And the other folks that I can probably redirect would be some builders. I don't need 6 builders. Go ahead and put them there. So we really need to ramp up that wood supply because we are absolutely out of wood. Completely out. And as it gets colder, the fuel supply is also going to be an issue. So we need to make sure we have enough fuel, which is going to require a steady supply of wood. So we've just reached the labor notable tier. So we got 30 prosperity. Excellent news, because it means we can unlock the tavern. We can also unlock one of the first privileges that reduces the splendor impact on the other estates. So this one, it reduces the labor and clergy mutual splendor impact. This one will allow us to expand our territory by giving us authority. But I think the first and most important one is the tavern, because the tavern is how we will unlock commoners. In using the balancing for realism mod, commoners and above require tavern drinks rather than a well. And so it's very important that we have that tavern built. But we've loads of other things to build first. So let's just finish that off. The church manor, several houses. We need to finish all that off. We have the second potter's kiln being built. The nice thing about using cottage industries as a second, basically a workplace within a house, is that you don't have to build anything. You know, if I had to build another lumber camp or woodcutter camp, that would take tools, it would take materials, and it would take space. So these cottage industries are not as efficient as a standalone industry, but they're very efficient in terms of space and building materials. Good to use when you're strapped for tools or cash. Click on the tower to get into the guards. We go to edit mode. Okay, so we can see that the current situation means we have protected everything except the very ends of each end of the village. I think I'm okay with that. Until we have our first outlaws, we're not going to have any theft from those areas. So I'm going to leave that alone for the moment, but recognize that I need to expand that manor and expand my guard presence in order to mitigate that. And really, I think all it would take is if I go back into the guards here and I add another part to the building. So, for instance, if I pop this onto the end here, that will give us more capacity for additional guards, which should increase security. It's going to cost us a lot, though, in terms of materials, so I'm going to just wait off on that one. We can take a look again at unlockables. So we unlock the tavern. We could unlock vegetable farms, although the weather is not great for vegetable farming at the moment. But it would allow us to start to capitalize on compost that we're producing. So I'm going to just start some initial vegetable farms here. We'll go with the plot. So there's two types. I'm going to do the plot, which is a simple placeable that you do like this. Please take some tools, but not too many. And we can go ahead and do that. I do like the fences, though they cost wood. Look nice. In my corn crib then I can start to store vegetables. I want to have a fair. Now these fairs really increase happiness. They give you some influence. I don't need a lot of influence right now. And I really need to preserve my food supply, so I'm actually going to say no thanks. Even though it's fun to have all the visitors, it really reduces your food supply, and this is a critical time of year for me. So in vanilla, where you only have 2 or 3 foods max, in the mod pack you have lots of different foods, and I really encourage players to use as many foods as possible, because that will mitigate against the changing seasons. Some foods do well during the autumn, colder temperatures, other foods do well during the summer. So it's definitely worth having as many different food types as possible. Plus, you know, a lot of the byproducts from one food are used in another, like poultry, the dung, or the livestock have dung, and that's used in vegetable farming. So you might as well use, it's interesting when he's walking in the air, you might as well use the dung and the compost since you have it. I should start thinking at some point about adding some more wells. So we've only the one well, but the village is still small enough that I think we can get by with one. Oh, so outlaws have arrived in the land. So a small band of outlaws has arrived, and they're going to start looking for easy pickings, which means that we really need this thing to be finished. It's not finished. In fact, we have red over here. Well, we'll do our best. Let's go ahead and prioritize construction of that additional room. So we'll start to see those outlaws showing up where they're at the moment. Here they are, trying to steal chickens. Probably headed off to a camp somewhere. There's their camp. The one good thing about outlaws is that when you catch them, they become serfs. So it's an additional way of getting immigrants. Oh, it's getting cold now. It started to snow. 5 degrees Celsius. Okay, we did have a theft. So I'm going to right-click on the alert resource. Yeah, I can see that they stole from this area, which means that they're probably stealing pottery or planks, neither of which I really want to give away. Probably planks in this case, because the pottery is still high. Alright, we really need to get this built. Alwyn the Unsteady is hammering away. Hopefully getting that done soon. Outlaws, if they do a little bit of thievery, it's not the end of the world. But if there's a constant stream of theft happening, you're going to be losing gold each time, you're going to be losing resources, and that really will sap the economy of the village. So we do need to make sure that we're covering all of our areas. Okay, the church is built, which is excellent, and looks like the guards are built. Double click on that and go into edit mode. Okay, so it's not producing a ton of security yet, but I need to add a load of guards here. So I've got 4 slots now for guards. And if I go back into edit mode, that's going to increase the radius of security. So you can see that's already making a difference in securing those workplaces. Let's let it run for a bit. As they go to the patrol arrows, they will also start to generate more and more security. So that'll help as well. But I'm probably going to need to put a few patrols out here at the end of the village, just to make sure that the chicken houses are safe. A few patrols there, and we'll put a few patrols here so that when they're finished patrolling the village center, they'll come patrol this area, which will help. Okay, so now with the addition of those patrols and the addition of more guards, the radius of security is increasing, so this is actually now secure. So we shouldn't have any more theft in that area. I would just need to secure this area here. Now I usually, because fuel, there's no way to increase the capacity of the fuel carts, one thing that you can do is to just increase the number of fuel carts. So I may, because there's so many people living down this end of the village, may add another fuel cart down there. Let's just have a little tiny market here. We'll call it the stone market, since it's near my stone industry. We'll add wood fuel cart just here. I mentioned getting some upgrades here before we start increasing splendor again for kingdom. So let's try to unlock as much as we can here. So let's get this privilege locked. Add it. Privilege screen. So I have 7 and -4. When I do this, it reduces by 50% my penalty, I suppose, on the clergy estate, which is good. One thing that I can do to relieve pressure on people having to travel all the way to the center of the village all the time would be to add a well and maybe one fuel or one food market here, one food cart, let's call it. So if I go to market carts, I will go ahead and add a egg cart or a fish cart. I suppose eggs would make sense since I'm so near the supply of eggs. And the other thing that we need to do was a well. Just here on the shore. Now they still have to go to church, but at least they don't have to walk all the way to the market. Now, if we start to catch some outlaws, we're going to need to put them in a prison. We don't have a prison, so we need to start thinking about a prison cell. So we've got our little manor here, which is looking pretty lonesome, village manor. Let's go ahead and add a prison. And we could add a tower. Makes sense for a prison, right? Once that's built, we probably will have room for 3 or 4 prisoners, which will allow them to convert back to regular law-abiding villagers. So as you expand the village, most of you know this, but you need to make sure that services are close to people's houses and their workplaces. And because the vast majority of people are living on this side of the village, my market is on the edge of that, so it's nice to have this secondary market to relieve some of the pressure. It also increases my throughput in terms of being able to sell things and keep the market stocked. I noticed that I'm out of wood shingles, which means that probably I have a construction zone or a construction site that is out of commission. So I'm going to go to my sawmill, second tab, change the function from planks to wood shingles, and just produce shingles for a while. 10 degrees is not bad. I mean, things are still growing. If I go over here, you can see that, for instance, because it's wet, the fish are better, so there's more water, better fish, but berries, for instance, are 50% decreased because of the cold temperatures. Clay is decreased, it's harder to dig. That also explains why the clay supply has run out. Eggs, basically all my food supply is cut by half because of the cold weather. And that's really going to start to show. You're going to see the food stocks drop. The egg supply has already dropped dramatically. We're going to need to start tapping into these other food supplies. You'll also notice the shadows are getting longer as the winter progresses. So you get this kind of bright sunlight on one side and then a dark, long shadow on the other. Those that live in the northern or extreme southern hemispheres will know why that's accurate. Here in Ireland, we definitely get this effect in the winter of the really long shadows and the low sun. It's a great little village. I really like this map. It's so scenic, you know, with the big rolling hills behind it. I love how the valley is surrounded by hills. And there's a lot of very interesting hills here as well. Like this would be wonderful for a fortification of some kind. This hill here is would be excellent for a castle. I can definitely foresee that someday I'm going to have a cathedral on one of these hills. Only a dream now with this tiny little hamlet. I'm very happy to see that my gold supply actually just hit the maximum amount because of the trading that I'm doing, which means that we need either a treasury, well, we do need a treasury, or we need to unlock some things. So in terms of unlockables, we need influence for these, so that's not going to happen. But we can unlock the military fort, because we're going to need that. Frontier fortifications, we'll need that. We'll unlock the monastery and the rustic church splendor. Use up some of that gold. The manor house as well. Really use these walls or hedges that much. And we can unlock some things that require gold here. The bailiff's office, bridge, and we've the contractual wage edict, which we can now activate, which basically just speeds up the bailiff. Alright, so that used up some of my gold, and what I'll also do is add a treasury to the village manor. So maybe we'll just pop additional wing on here. Prison is finished, so we've capacity for 4 prisoners. I want to add a bailiff's office to the village manor so that we can start prospecting with some of our excess gold. So we'll go ahead and do that. Maybe one of these white halls here. Now we can nominate our bailiff. We'll call it the Golden. It's a nice name. Tertiaire Short Sight, probably not the best bailiff. And Ate the Unwavering. Trade price bonus. So both of those come with a trade price bonus. I think Ate the Unwavering sounds like a good name. Well, I think the food supply looks good enough, even though we're still in winter. I think it looks good enough to get a bit more immigration going, so we'll go ahead and do that. Celebrating fish. I don't know. I don't think I really want to do this. Although I do need influence. Alright, maybe I will do it. That'll give me the influence that I need to advance in the labor and start to unlock the rest of that. We've got visitors who are munching up all my food, drinking all my water. Yeah, they're just eating so much food. I think during a festival as well, the consumption of food increases. It actually doubles for everyone, not just for the visitors. Loads of visitors. Must be 15 visitors here. And the state of some of them, they're filthy. Filthy! I wonder if the reason why I can't use the bailiff is because I don't have a great hall. Let's add a great hall. Perfect. So I need a door. And an interactive location. Yeah, that was it. So I needed the Great Hall in addition to the bailiff in order to use the bailiff. So, bailiff, what can we get you started on? None of these are near the village. There they are. 50 gold. You go off and do that. Alright, so at this point, we're building houses to accommodate all the newcomers. We've 63 people. We have just finished the fair, which means that we have some influence to spend, which I'm going to spend on the manor household, which will allow us to unlock authority. But before we get there, we need to finish constructing everything that we have under construction, and we need to get through the winter. And it's looking like a pretty cold and long winter. It's still only 5 degrees. We're running low on food, despite saving up a lot of food before the winter started. But just the amount of immigration and probably that berry festival, which may not have been the smartest thing for me to do during the winter. Or fish festival, I guess it was. The village manor has really expanded. We now have a great hall, treasury, bailiff's office, a prison, and the original tax office. It's good to see that building up because it kind of feels a little awkward when you have a big village and a tiny Lord Manor. Will this winter never end? It felt like it started early. You know, they gave us the winter warning and then immediately it was like 10 degrees. I feel like we had a really early and cold autumn, which is not ideal. But we were well prepared. We did our best to increase the food stocks. So we are here in late winter. It's starting to fog up after a long snowy period. The temperature is starting to warm up. We're now at 10 degrees Celsius. We're doing pretty good. I'd say we've done a really good job of expanding quite quickly during this season. We increased a lot of the functions of our village manor, which is great. We have an increased capacity of the church. We solved our security issues by employing 4 guards in the church manor. And we've managed to keep ahead of trade and make lots of gold. So I think things are going very well for Twisted River. I think we are ready to start looking at expanding into new ways of farming. I think also we can start looking at expanding into the tavern and getting some commoners. And we can probably start to create our first administration and create some authority so that we can expand our territory. So things are looking very good. I think this is probably one of the easiest and best starts that I've had in a while. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.